This is a question for you, Minister, on which it will require a one-syllable answer. Minister, the issue of minimum density at the edge of town and greenfield sites has caused significant problems outside of the M50 concerning the supply of housing. The imposition of such densities necessitates the construction of apartments at locations where they're just not viable. The application of these densities by An Bord Pleanála is unlawful, and it undermines the statutory standing of every county development plan, as no specific minimums have been set out in the SPPR and nor in the ministerial guidelines. I raised a PQ with you in early May, and in this regard the response I received was, to say the least, confusing. So let me put it to you. The SPPR, which that is relied on by the board in applying such densities, minimum densities, is the SPPR 4 of the building height guidelines, and the relevant extract I will quote: "The minimum densities for such locations set out in the guidelines issued by the Minister under Section 28 of the Planning and Development Act 2000, as amended, titled Sustainable Residential Development in Urban Areas 2007, or anything or any replacement guidelines," of which I have here also. The section clearly relies on paragraph 511 of the Guidelines on Sustainable Residential Development in Urban Areas 2009. So let me quote you that relevant section from those guidelines. "The general range of 35 to 50 dwellings per hectare and such densities involving a variety of housing types where possible should be encouraged generally. The development of net densities less than 30 dwellings per hectare should be generally discouraged." Now, Minister, it's clear that no specific minimums have been provided in either the SPPR or the guidelines of 2009. So you will appreciate how I was totally confused when I received your response to the PQ raised, wherein you confirmed, and I quote, "Achieving densities of at least 35 dwellings per hectare, at least 35 dwellings per hectare, is essential in catering for the more diverse range of households." So, Minister, it seems to be that you're inferring in the response to the PQ that the minimum is 35 dwellings per hectare, but neither the SPPR nor the guidelines make any reference to such a minimum. And the very simple question is, can you confirm to the House now that there is no such minimum provided in the guidelines for outer urban greenfield sites? It's a yes or no answer, Minister.
I was wondering when we get to the yes or no answer. I must check the PQ answer I gave you. But just to confirm, because I understand the people who have raised these concerns, which, and I met them myself over the years as well. Yeah, I see the clock, yeah. And to be clear, on every planning decision on every site has to have individual judgment by planners, both at a local level and at Bord Pleanála level. I'm trying to give you the answer. You took 4 minutes to ask the question. Now you want me to answer a yes or no in 10 seconds. You're not going to get that, because planning is about interpretation of planning laws and making a decision on site by site. We do, to achieve compact growth, there are minimum targets set there.
Sorry, I think the Deputy has asked a very specific
question.
Well,
she had 4 minutes talking, Deputy, and I've listened, sorry, Cancurla, and I've listened
sorry,
to...
Minister, sorry. I think, in fairness, you may not be in a position to answer the question, and that's fine, but a specific question.
Yes, and that's, well, it's unusual now, but just to be very clear, I've listened to this contribution on more occasions than just today. And I want to make it clear when it comes to density of sites. People very often assume. I'm not saying each site by site has to be judged. No, each site has to be judged differently. We be that in Wexford, Carlow, Cork, Meath, or Dublin. And I'm conscious that the guidelines that are set. I'm going to be clear on this. The guidelines that are set often lead people to be concerned about sites. But I want to be clear on this. High density does not mean high rise, and that's what people keep saying. So I'm not saying there has to be high rise in every site.
Because the Minister may have misunderstood the question. The clarity that is required is that An Bord Pleanála are setting down a minimum that does not exist in the SPPR or the guidelines. So can you tell the House whether or which there is a minimum and where it is?
Very clear.
Is there a minimum? Is there a minimum? It's not about anything else.
There's not an exact minimum per site. I want to be clear on this.
So now there is not a minimum. Thank you.
No, I'm also going. That's fine, but sorry, Cancora, just in terms of this debate, if we are to achieve climate change, compact growth, it will mean a higher density and better use of land.
Can we let the Deputy go on with her next question?
The Minister has told the House that there is no minimum. And on foot of that clarification, what I'm asking you to do, Minister, is to immediately write to On Board Pleanála and ask them to desist from imposing minimum densities on strategic housing applications because it is unlawful.
Because there's plenty of decisions in front of Board Pleanála at this moment in time. I, as a Minister in the Planning Department, or Minister Murphy, we do not dictate to Board Pleanála how to judge every individual site. Likewise, we don't do it to local authorities. There are guidelines set out there to achieve the best planning outcomes. And that's what their job is to do. I cannot instruct on Board Pleanála to issue a certain to make. They are given guidelines to work on. Just to be clear, I can't instruct Board Pleanála to do anything in relation to per site.
Because it's On Board Pleanála who are relying on SPP or specific planning policy requirements. Now, we don't need schizophrenic legislation. You have said that there is no minimum requirement. And if there is no minimum requirement and On Board Pleanála are applying it, they are completely usurping the authority of a county development plan, in which case they can't, because it's not contained in any part of the documents that were provided to me. So, Minister, are you refusing to direct On Board Pleanála on the basis that we don't have a minimum requirement?
Oh, wait now, Deputy. I just think in a planning matter, the Minister is specifically precluded from expressing a comment about an individual planning matter.
There is no individual matter,
Count. Speak about general planning policy.
I have asked.
No, sorry. The Minister cannot become involved in directing or involved in any way with On Board Pleanála on an individual planning matter.
Sorry, these are not individual matters, Count Corla. This is a matter of which case all matters are being decided based on something that is not contained. No minimum. The Minister has stated there is no minimum. And if there is no minimum, On Board Pleanála only a month ago have decided, as late as last month, that they are dictating minimum densities pursuant to your SPPR, Minister. And if you are telling the House that there is no minimum, then I believe that it is beholden on you to write to On Board Pleanála and point out that there is no minimum requirement.
Okay, can I be clear again, Concurrent? What I've said to you is we do not dictate to Board Pleanála and cannot, under legislation or under law, dictate to Board Pleanála or any local authority, be that Wexford, Meath, Galway, Cork, of what to do on any individual site. And I couldn't be clear when I said it a few minutes ago. There are no, just to be clear, there are no we do not dictate site by site what the guidelines are. And I can't be clear on that. What are set out are there aspirations, aims, densities. But please do not always link high density to high rise.
Can you write to On Board Pleanála and inform them that there is no minimum requirement in the SPPR?
Policy context.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
In the general policy context, I can confirm that Board Pleanála are well versed what the guidelines are, and so are local authorities, and our national plans set targets and aims and aspirations as well. But I cannot, and I think you have to appreciate this, Deputy, that I cannot direct Board Pleanála to achieve any potential outcome on any site.
You will write to On Board Pleanála to say that the SPPR contains no minimum requirement.
Again,
you're confirming that to the House Minister.
If it helps, Deputy, I will certainly, because we do engage with Board Pleanála.
You will certainly.
No, let me finish what I'm saying, sorry. We engage with Board Pleanála and all planning authorities around guidelines and aims and aspirations, which are in the National Planning Framework, which are in the various guidelines, which are being updated, by the way, as well. And they're guidelines, right? And I want to be clear on this. They know what they are, but if you want me to write to them again to go through all the guidelines and targets, I will do that. But I think they know that quite well.
I specifically request that you write to them to state that there are no minimum density requirements contained within the SPPR or the Sustainable Residential Development.
Per site.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.